fair, especially if that person was elected on a sub-mandate along with a lot of other issues, there should be justice. So that's a very interesting point. I'm curious, Marshall, how you feel about that.
So I tend to think that unless it becomes an overriding matter, it tends not to matter. So that overriding tendency would have to be the thing we're all talking about versus everything else.
Yeah, it has to be a mandate in a sense. It needs to be like a core mandate.
Yeah. If we don't have a core mandate, we're going to have a hard time, right? Like, competitive government will be the name of the game for, I think, at least the next decade. Meaning few seats will switch. But I do think if you're going to make a change, you need to have a genuine mandate, not what the president declared a mandate.
Okay, that's fair. I'm curious what other people in the room think, but to me, that moment of if there is a change in the executive, in the administration, to me, that feels like the mechanism that would be called into play on whether or not there would be prosecution versus pardoning or a kind of quiescence and a non-retribution stance. But I'm curious what other people think.
Think of all that stuff. There's a lot of things we take for granted that we sort of imagine they are laws, but they're actually just like traditions, like within the government.
Exactly.
Yeah, the best example I could think of is probably the tradition that George Washington did. He got elected twice. He was the first president of the United States. He got elected again, and then he voluntarily, didn't run for a third time. And that has been a tradition for, a long time until FDR. And then after FDR, then it became a law. Then it became an amendment. We do take a lot of these kinds of things for granted.
And that's kind of where I think it stands, right? Because there's been a lot of tests on executive privilege in the courts, but the idea of a kind of, tradition of both executive pardoning post facto, as well as this kind of default into a executive immunity. These things are part tradition, part jurisprudence, but still very much heavily rely on tradition. And to your point about Washington, which is a perfect example, if there's a radical enough break with the tradition, then you either get new legislation or you get a new traditional setting act. And I'm curious, I don't know. I think it would have to take, to Marshall's point, first of all, something incredibly smoking gun level egregious as a sort of criminal implication, coupled with it being kind of a core mandate in the election itself. Because remember, the only reason Nixon resigned and these things happened was because there were votes to get him out, not because Nixon had a kind of moral fall on his sword moment, but rather he realized he'd lost his own kind of privilege and protection from within his own party.
I'm not sure I have a good answer to this, but I guess the upshot of this is that every time something like this happens, then we have like another word, a reformation of sorts. Some kind of reformation. Like we need that. That was like what we had like the Gilded Age, and then we had the era of like. And it was FDR's era, Second Bill of Rights and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well said. This could be an era, a transitioning moment for eras. That's interesting. But yeah, going from the Gilded Era to the New Deal to, post-World War II boom and atomic era. I would love to know what we're classifying this era as. Post-truth era? I don't know.
It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard for someone from Boston to say this, but a comedy of errors era.
You win again. You're just on fire, bro.
Well, I think that a lot of the reporting on this is misunderstanding. Like, for example, the average IQ dropping. I don't think that's really the accurate measurement of how we're advancing as an intelligent species. Because as we advance more into this information technology wonder that is AI, it's not necessarily about the things that you know anymore. It used to be. That used to be like where you made your domain expertise. Now, it's more about how efficiently you can access the information that's available to you. And that's a different skill entirely. It's not about rote memorization anymore. It's about access skills and utilization skills and efficiency in getting shit done skills. Things like that start to matter a whole lot more when you don't need to memorize everything, because everything's already, the entirety of human information is already at your fingertips and available to you through AI, right? It becomes more about how many times can you multiply yourself over. That's the much more interesting question than how many rote facts can you memorize, right?
And then it becomes a matter of like actual individual capitalization rate. It's nuts. It's cool. Assuming that everyone had their, I personally, that would be me. I run my own business, but I guess like organizations anyway.
I mean, it's good timing on that. There was a Senate committee hearing recently where a neuroscientist testified. I think his name is Dr. Jared Horvath, and you can look up the committee recording. This was the last couple of weeks. All right. Well, then never mind. There you go.
No, keep going.
That makes sense.
I was pushing back against that article quite a bit.
Okay, great.
Just the way it was bastardized in the Daily Wire. That's because our friend Benjamin decided to post it to use it as a referendum for why his point that all colleges are evil and wicked is true.
So wait a minute. So before I even go further, so you're telling me Benjamin used as his primary reference not the actual Senate hearing recording and transcript, but the Daily Wire?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So you understand Benjamin. That's exactly
okay. Got it.
Why he would search for headlines that validate his bias,
right?
And then he finds that article, doesn't read it, and doesn't look at where they reference the actual setting for the Senate hearing. No, why would he do that?
Right. Got it. Well, then, yeah, I can see why that led him down the primrose path. But that being said, the only thing I was going to bring up here is I think there's conflicting ideas about its impact. I think the neuroscience around knowledge and skill attainment, this really goes to kind of what T was talking about. It's been rooted in metrics in the pre-sort of information age era, and that is sort of the benchmark and baseline we measure against. And so, sure, against those benchmarks and against certain attainment scores for being able to have proficiency in things like mathematics, reading, on that benchmark, we are seeing declines. And the neuroscientist, comes with the causal thesis that this is because we learn better from humans. That's a function of multiple different mechanisms, from mirror neurons to other behavioral adaptations. Okay, let's put that to the side. The point that T's making is very fair, which is if you were to classify what intelligence is and say that is, a locked in stone, timeless idea versus a measurement of adaptiveness or usefulness based on your era, you kind of have to start from that first principle. Because if we're not, you could say that also spatial ability maybe has gone down, or dexterity and manual ability as we move from a craftsman era, right, to an abstracted era. So I do think that we have to start from kind of an operational definition or first principles to have a solid conversation. Otherwise, we're probably risking just talking past each other.
Yeah, I agree, because at this point, I may as well have forgotten how to code for how much coding I actually do. And yet, I am shipping more fucking code every goddamn day than I was the day before. That's just like how I'm multiplying myself, right?
So I think to your point, like, absolutely, by the way, T, I don't want to step on what you just said. That's absolutely right. I think if we use this as a jumping off point to how should pedagogy, evolve for early childhood education, I think that's a really fascinating and open question. I'm not an expert in it. I'm super curious, as you're someone who teaches people much later in their educational journey, but do you have some thoughts on this?
Yeah, first I wanted to correct myself. I forgot that I was really going back and forth with Steve on this. Steve, is in the room. He first brought it up, and the way he presented it, I can only do with an impression. This article here, that basically shows, they're the dumbest generation ever. And only one that's ever gone down since their parents because of these damn screens. So I had a little knee-jerk reaction to that. For all the reasons that I'm going to repeat that I'm sure you can all figure out. But I have a slightly different take than some of my peers on this. I have never seen much of a dip in any student that I've ever taught from one generation to another. What was that?
I know Pro's got to take a call. I have to leave in a second, but if I don't catch the rest of what he's anyone else. Okay.
I didn't really quite catch what you just said, Michael. I definitely heard you talking, but then it was kind of done in like really specific parts.
I was just saying, Pro was on a call, and I was really saying what to say, but thanking everyone for the great conversation and saying I can't wait to hear what his thoughts were on this. That was all.
Oh, word, right on.
Am I still cutting out, by the way, or no?
Yeah, absolutely. You're totally in the Matrix, but it's all good.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that, guys. Good night, everyone.
Oh, well, all right. Shit, I didn't mean it like that. My bad, guys. Michael's cool. I really like that dude.
Michael's fantastic.
So is it performative or is it fact finding when Ted Lieu asks Pam Bondi? Let me see if I can remember the question. He asked like a two-part question. He asked two questions. The first question was, is Prince Andrew in the Epstein files? Do we know that he was been partying with Jeffrey Epstein in the presence of underage girls? And Pam Bondi took 10 seconds of silence, and then she answered yes. She did that, and then Ted asked the next question, basically just replacing Prince Andrew with Donald Trump. Okay, her answer doesn't matter. The question that I'm interested in is this a performative question? Is this performative, or is this fact-finding, or could it be both?
I mean, are they just asking them to repeat what's already in the files, or are they asking them to say what's not, or what's redacted? Because that would be fact-finding, right?
I don't know the answer to that question. I think I want to say that the Democrats, at least Massey, plus a few others, maybe Republicans, maybe a few others of them, are interested in who these people are. It can't just be that it was just Epstein and just Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yeah, no shit. It's a lot of people fucking. A lot of people fucking.
I guess it could be fact finding in that kind of sense.
A lot of people.
We already said this, but the Epstein files really are a fantastic case study for LLM usage. That's the first thing I think is that's such I would immediately feed that to an LLM and be like, this is your training data, this is everything you need to know. And then I would ask it fucking everything, like whatever I wanted to know. And then, you know,
Yeah, that was one of my initial reactions to when they posted this down their website. The DOJ website was, you know, there's millions of documents here. You know, I could use some help here, but it doesn't seem to be any way to like directly get an LLM in there to like categorize all the files or whatever. I think you have to do something like what Euro is doing, where you just start downloading all the stuff and then putting it into a format apart from what the DOJ had.
So I haven't like looked into it enough to like start. What am I trying to say? I haven't personally done an investigation. Maybe that's what I need to say. And with that, I haven't like gotten into the actual try to download any of the files or anything like that. Though I have heard that they made, I guess the Department of Justice when they released it, it's like. The allegation is that it's intentionally difficult to like make copies of this information and download it. I don't know if that's true. Maybe it's more like it's just like a really shitty UX because it's like a thrown up together in a few minutes type of website, and like maybe that's what's going on. I don't know. But is it difficult to actually get the files like as a citizen? I guess is what I'm asking. Like, do we all need to like file like whatever those Freedom of Information Acts or whatever? Like,